Let me start with a fear almost nobody says out loud. It isn't a market crash. It isn't taxes. It's a quieter one that shows up at 2 in the morning. What if I run out of money before I run out of life? You worked, you saved, you did the responsible thing for 40 years. And now that the paychecks have stopped, every dollar you spend feels like it's coming out of a bucket that isn't refilling. So people do a strange thing. They retire with more than enough, and then they're almost afraid to touch it. They skip the trip. They don't turn the heat up. They sit on a pile of money they spent a lifetime building, and they're scared to enjoy a dime of it. Today I want to take that fear apart, calmly, and hand you something better in its place. A simple way to think about how much you can actually spend, why you probably won't run out, and what the real risk is. No scare tactics. Just the math, in plain English. Before we get into any numbers, let me tell you the thing that most of these videos save for the end, because I think you deserve to hear it first. Most retirees do not run out of money. Study after study finds the same surprising pattern. People reach the end of retirement with most of their savings still sitting there, untouched. A lot of folks actually die with more money than they retired with. Now, that's not a promise, and it's not true for everyone. But it tells you something important about the fear. For most careful savers, the danger isn't spending too much. It's spending too little, and trading years of good living for a bigger number you never use. So as we go through this, I want you to hold two things at once. Yes, we should be thoughtful with the money. And no, you are probably not on the edge of a cliff. You have more room than the fear is telling you. Let's be honest about why this fear grips people the way it does. For your entire working life, money came in on a schedule. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, the account went up. Even in a bad year, another paycheck was coming. Retirement flips that completely. Now the account mostly goes down, and there's no paycheck riding in to fix it. Your brain, which spent decades watching that balance climb, suddenly watches it fall. And it panics, even when the plan is working exactly as designed. On top of that, none of us knows the one number that would make this easy: how long we're going to live. If I could tell you the exact date, I could tell you exactly how much you can spend. Nobody can. So the fear isn't foolish. It's your mind trying to solve an equation with a missing number. The good news is, we don't need the exact number. We just need a smart way to plan around not knowing it. This is where a famous little idea comes in, and you've probably heard the name even if nobody ever explained it to you: the 4% rule. Here's where it came from. Back in the early 1990s, a financial planner named William Bengen went back through decades of market history and asked a simple question. If someone retired and pulled money out every year, how much could they take without running dry over a 30-year retirement, even if they'd had the bad luck to retire right before a crash? The answer he landed on was about 4%. So the rule works like this. In your first year of retirement, you take 4% of your savings. If you've saved $500,000, that's $20,000 in year one. Then each year after, you don't recalculate. You just give yourself a raise for inflation, so your spending keeps up with prices. That's the whole idea. 4% to start, then adjust for the cost of living. Now, here's the part I really want you to hear, because it's where people get it wrong in both directions. The 4% rule is a rule of thumb. It is not a law. It is not a guarantee. And it is not a straitjacket you have to wear for 30 years no matter what happens. Think of it the way you'd think of: drink 8 glasses of water a day. It's a reasonable starting point that gets you in the right neighborhood. Not a precise prescription for your exact body on your exact day. Bengen was testing a worst case, someone who retired at the worst possible moment and never adjusted. In most of history, people could have safely taken more than 4%. So please don't treat it as a hard ceiling that means you must live small. And please don't treat it as a promise that 4% is guaranteed safe no matter what. It's a compass, not a map. It points you in the right direction, and then real life. Your health, the markets, your choices, fills in the details. Let me make this concrete, because percentages slide right off the brain. Say you've got $500,000 saved. 4% is $20,000 in your first year, a little over $1,600 a month coming out of savings. If you got $1 million, it's $40,000 a year, a bit over $3,000 a month. And here's the piece people forget: that's on top of your Social Security. So picture a couple with that $500,000, taking their $20,000 a year from savings, and also collecting, say, 30-something thousand a year from Social Security between the two of them. All of a sudden, the picture isn't a bucket draining to zero. It's a paycheck from savings plus a paycheck from Social Security, landing every month for life. When you add the two together, the fear starts to shrink to its actual size. All right. If the 4% idea works so well in history, why do people still run into trouble? Here's the real villain, and it has an unglamorous name: sequence of returns risk. Stay with me, because this is the single most useful thing in the whole episode. When you're saving, the orders of your good and bad years barely matters. You're not pulling money out, so you just ride it out. But once you're retired and withdrawing, the order suddenly matters enormously. Two retirees can get the exact same average accrues return over 20 years and end up in completely different places. One comfortable, one in trouble, purely because of when the bad years hit. Let me show you why. Imagine two people. Both retire with the same money, both take the same withdrawals, and over 20 years both average the same return. The only difference: one of them hits a nasty market drop in their very first few years of retirement, and the other hits that same drop near the end. The one who gets the bad years early is selling investments while they're down canned, pulling out spending money at the same time. So their nest egg gets hollowed out before it ever has a chance to recover. The one who gets those same bad years late has already enjoyed years of growth first, so the portfolio is strong enough to take the hit. Same average. Very different endings. That's why the first 5 years or so of retirement matter more than almost any other stretch. It's not about being smarter. It's about the luck of timing, and, as we'll see, about having a way to bend when the timing goes against you. So how do you protect yourself from bad timing you can't predict? Not with a magic percentage. With flexibility. This is what the pros call using guardrails, and it's just common sense dressed up in a fancy word. The idea is simple: you don't lock your spending in stone. In a year when the markets do well and your balance is up, you let yourself take a little more. Take the trip, help the grandkids. In a year when the markets fall hard, you gently tap the brakes. Maybe you skip the raise for inflation that year, or trim the extras a bit. You're not slashing your life, you're just steering. And here's the remarkable thing the research shows: that willingness to adjust, even a little, even just in the bad years, does more to keep your money safe than agonizing over whether the right number is 3.8% or 4.2%. You already know how to do this. You did it your whole life when a tight month came along. You just keep doing it. Here's another calm tool that helps people sleep at night, and it pairs perfectly with guardrails: thinking in buckets. Instead of seeing your money as one big pile that rises and falls scarily, you mentally split it into 3. The first bucket is short-term, a couple years of spending money held somewhere safe and boring. Cash, basically. That doesn't care what the stock market did today. The second bucket is the middle years, steadier, more conservative investments. The third bucket is the long-term money that can stay invested for growth because you won't touch it for many years. Why does this help? Because when a bad market year hits, you don't have to sell your investments while they're down to buy groceries. You spend from the safe bucket and give the invested money time to recover. It's the same money you always had. You've just organized it so that a scary market never forces you into a bad decision at the worst moment. Let's talk about which accounts you pull from, because doing this thoughtfully can stretch your money by years, and it ties together a few things we've covered before on this channel. Most people, in general, draw down in a rough order, first from regular taxable accounts, then from tax-deferred accounts like a traditional IRA or 401k, and last from a Roth, which grows tax-free and has no forced withdrawals. The idea is to let the tax-advantaged money keep compounding as long as possible while spending the money that's already been taxed first. Now, this is exactly the kind of thing where the details depend on your situation, your tax bracket, your Social Security, and those required minimum distributions that kick in at 73, whether you want them or not, which we covered in an earlier episode. So I'm not going to hand you a formula. I'm going to say what I always say: the orders matters, it's worth planning, and it's a perfect question to bring to a tax professional. Small, quiet decisions here can add up to real years of extra runway. Now here's the piece that quietly does the most to calm the whole run out: fear. and it's one we've talked about before: Social Security. Think about what it actually is. It's a monthly check that keeps coming for as long as you live. It does not run out, it does not care what the stock market did, and it even rises with inflation over time. That is an incredibly rare and valuable thing. It means you will never risk be at zero, no matter how long you live, because there's a paycheck underneath everything that never stops. That's why the math on running out is far less scary than it feels. For most people, Social Security covers a big chunk of the essentials: the housing, the food, the lights, and your savings are there for the rest and for the extras. And it's a big reason that, for a lot of people, waiting a bit to claim a larger benefit can be one of the calmest moves there is, because it makes that lifelong inflation-adjusted floor even higher. Your savings can have a bad year. That floor never does. Let me tie all of this together with one person, so you can see how it feels in real life. Picture Susan. She's 66, just retired, and she's got $600,000 saved and a Social Security check coming in. On paper, she's in great shape. But she's terrified to spend, because all she can picture is that balance dropping. So here's what a calm plan looks like for her. She starts around 4%, roughly $24,000 from savings in year one, on top of her Social Security. She keeps about 2 years of spending in a safe bucket, so a bad market can't force her hand. She agrees with herself on simple guardrails. In good years, she'll take the trip. In bad years, she'll skip the inflation raise and trim the extras. And she knows Social Security is underneath it all, the floor that never runs out. Now look at what changed. The numbers barely moved, but Susan can breathe. She has a plan for the bad years, a paycheck for life, and permission to actually live. That's the whole point. Not a bigger number, a calmer one. There's a flip side to this fear I have to name, because it steals real years from good people. It's the one more year trap. It sounds responsible. I'll just work one more year to be safe. And then that year passes, and the fear hasn't gone anywhere, so you say it again. One more year, and again. There is always one more year, because no number ever feels like enough when your brain is scared of running out. At some point the question stops being, can I afford to retire? And becomes, can I afford to keep trading my healthiest years for a bigger balance I already don't need? I'm not telling you when to retire. That's deeply personal. I'm just asking you to notice if one more year has quietly become a treadmill. Enough is a real thing. It's worth figuring out where your enough actually is, so you can recognize it when you're standing on it. Let me be fair and honest, because I never want to wave away the real risks. So who does run into trouble? Usually it's not the person who took 4.5% instead of 4, it's bigger things. It's pulling out way too much in the early years. Spending like the party will never end right when sequence risk is most dangerous. It's a major health event or long-term care need that nobody planned for. It's rushing to help adult children with money you actually needed for yourself. And sometimes it's panic, selling everything in a downturn, locking in the losses, and missing the recovery. Notice something about that list. Almost all of it is about behavior, not about picking the perfect withdrawal percentage, which is actually encouraging because behavior is the part you can control. A steady hand, a little flexibility, and a plan for the predictable curveballs will carry you further than chasing the mathematically perfect number ever could. So let's turn all of this into something you can actually do this week. First, add up your guaranteed income, your Social Security, any pension, the money that shows up no matter what. That's your floor. Second, figure out what your basic, must-pay expenses really are, the essentials. If your floor already covers most of your essentials, take a breath, because a huge amount of the run-out risk is already off the table. Third, look at the gap between your total spending and that floor. That's the part your savings need to cover, and you can size it against the 4% idea to sanity check whether you're in a comfortable range. Fourth, set yourself a couple of simple guardrails ahead of time so you already know what you'll do in a good year and a bad one. And fifth, if the numbers are close or your situation has moving parts, sit down with a fee-only financial planner. A one-time checkup is worth every penny for the peace of mind alone. Step back with me for a second, because there's a lesson here that's bigger than any percentage. So much of a calm retirement isn't about squeezing out the perfect return or nailing the exact right withdrawal rate. It's about building a plan steady enough that you can stop staring at the balance and start living your life. The people who struggle usually aren't the ones who got the math slightly wrong. They're the ones who let fear drive, who either spent in a panic or refused to spend at all. You spent decades filling the reservoir. The skill now is different. It's learning to open the tap with a steady hand, trusting the plan you built, and letting the money do the job you saved it for. That's not a spreadsheet skill. It's a peace of mind skill, and it's one you can learn. Let's pull it all together. The fear of running out is real, but for most careful savers, it's bigger than the actual danger. Most retirees end with plenty left. The 4% rule is a helpful starting point. Take about 4% the first year, adjust for inflation, and remember it's a rule of thumb, not a law. The real risk isn't the average return. It's the order of returns, which is why the first few years and a little flexibility matter so much. Guardrails, a safe bucket for near-term spending, and a sensible withdrawal order protect you far more than any magic number. Social Security is the floor that never runs out and quietly makes the whole thing safer. Watch out for the one more year. Treadmill. And run your own numbers, floor first. Here's what I'd love for you to walk away with. You did the hard part already. You saved. The job now isn't to guard that money so tightly you never enjoy it. It's to spend it with a steady, thoughtful hand so it lasts, so you actually live. Know your floor. Start around 4%. Stay flexible. Keep a little safe money for the rough patches. And lean on the paycheck that never stops. These are rules of thumb and general information as of 2026, not personalized advice. And your situation is your own. So please run your specific numbers with a professional before you make big moves. But do let the fear shrink to its real size. You probably have more room than you think. I'm Daniel Brooks. Spend thoughtfully, live fully, and I'll see you on the next one.